Welcome to the very first deep dive of the deep dive. It's a show where we take a whole bunch of your sources, articles, research, even your own notes, and boil them down to the most important stuff, the things you really got to know.
Yeah, think of it as like a cheat sheet to being well-informed.
Exactly. And, maybe we'll have a little fun along the way.
With a little bit of humor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for this first deep dive, we're going to be exploring the world of large language models.
These LLMs are really changing AI, but they can feel kind of
Yeah.
like mysterious black boxes.
It's true, even for people who work with them every day. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You type in a prompt and you get this really human-like text back, but
That how?
yeah, how do these models think?
Yeah, what's happening under the hood?
Yeah. That's what we are going to unpack today.
Yes, and we're going to be focusing on this brand new survey paper. It dives into the world of attention heads.
Which are key components of how these LLMs process information.
Exactly. And we're also going to be using another paper to kind of give us some context on the field of mechanistic interpretability.
Which helps us understand the inner workings of these models.
Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty of attention heads,
Mm-hmm.
let's do a super quick recap for anyone who might be new to this whole LLM world.
Yeah.
So imagine you're reading a book. You're not giving equal importance to every single word on the page, right?
Your brain focuses on the words that are most important to understand the sentence, the paragraph, the story.
Right, and that's basically what attention mechanisms and neural networks do.
Yeah,
They help the model focus on the most important parts of the data. It's
kind of like a spotlight.
yeah, like a spotlight shining on the key information. And it helps the model process things so much better.
Much more efficiently, yeah.
So within this attention mechanism, we have these little components called attention heads, and you can think of them as
Specialized teams.
yeah, within the model, and each one is focusing on something a little different.
Yeah, a different aspect of the input.
And this is where it gets really, really cool, because the survey paper we're looking at today uses this amazing analogy to categorize these attention head functions.
Yeah, it compares them to
Human thought.
stages of human thought.
That's so wild.
So they break it down into these 4 stages: knowledge, recalling, KR, in-context identification, ICI, latent reasoning, LR, and expression preparation, EP.
Wow, so it's basically
LLMs going through these different steps to solve problems.
just like we do.
Just like us.
That's mind-blowing. So it's not just about mimicking human language. It's about mimicking the way we actually think.
Yeah, exactly.
So are you ready to dive into some specific examples of these attention heads and see what they can do?
Oh, absolutely. Let's explore some of these linguistic detectives.
Yes. All right. So we've got all these attention heads, and they can be playing all these different roles in the way an LLM processes information. What's one that really jumped out at you in the paper?
Yeah, well, one that really caught my eye is what researchers are calling the duplicate head. And this attention head is really, really good at identifying repeated content.
So
If there's a recycled joke or a recurring theme, it's like an AI that can instantly spot those things.
that's interesting. It seems almost simple, though. You would think that that would be a basic function
You would think.
for any language model.
Yeah, but you got to remember these models, they're learning from tons and tons of data, right?
Yeah.
And they have to learn what's important and what's not.
Oh, right.
So the fact that they're developing these specialized heads for even tasks like this, it shows how complex their processing is becoming.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about something a little more complex?
Oh, yeah. Well, how about the sentiment summarizer?
Okay.
This attention head can actually analyze a piece of text and figure out its emotional tone.
Whoa.
It's like having an AI that can tell if a movie review is positive or negative just by the language used.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. It's like they're developing their own sense of,
Emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Right. And this is just one example. The paper talks about a ton of these fascinating attention heads, each with their own little function.
Right. Okay. So we've got all these individual specialists, but the paper also mentions these things called circuits.
Yes.
What are those all about?
Okay, so just like in electronics, right, you have circuits.
Right.
And in these models, we have these pathways that are formed by multiple attention heads.
So they work together.
Yeah, they work together in this coordinated way, and they basically determine the flow of information in the model.
So it's like a network within a network.
Exactly. And the paper gives this really interesting example. They call it the IOI circuit.
What does that stand for?
It stands for indirect object identification.
Indirect object identification.
Yeah.
That sounds very specific.
Yeah, so think about a sentence like, Mary bought flowers for John.
Yeah.
The IOI circuit is all about figuring out who's receiving the action in that sentence, in this case, John.
Ah, okay, so it's trying to understand, like, the relationship between the different parts of the sentence.
Exactly. And it does this by using a whole team of attention heads, right? So one's focusing on the subject, another one's on the verb, and another on the indirect object. They're all working together to understand the meaning.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that all this is happening inside these models,
Mm-hmm.
but I imagine this research is pretty challenging, right? Like, we're just starting to understand how it all works.
Oh, absolutely. The field is still really young, and, the paper does point out some of the challenges that researchers are facing, right? Like,
Yeah.
most of the studies have only looked at pretty simple tasks. So
Right.
we don't really know how these models handle really complex reasoning or decision making.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to understand a giant rainforest, but we're just looking at a few leaves, you know?
Exactly. There's so much more to discover.
So we've got these attention heads, these linguistic detectives, and then the circuits where they're all working together to figure out these harder problems.
Yeah.
That really makes you wonder, how far can we really take this whole human brain analogy?
Yes.
You know, are LLMs really like thinking like us? Or are we just seeing what we want to see?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And it's something that researchers are really thinking about a lot.
Right.
We're still just getting started in understanding how all of this works, and this paper gives us like a framework,
Yeah.
a way to think about how attention heads function.
A starting point.
But there's still so much we don't know.
It feels like we're like explorers in this totally new land, you know?
Yeah,
And who knows what we're going to find?
exactly.
Maybe LLMs are even more complex than we can even imagine right now.
Absolutely, and that's what makes this whole field so exciting.
Yeah.
There's this real sense of discovery, like we're on the edge of something huge.
Totally.
And for anyone who wants to learn more, I'd really recommend checking out this survey paper.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's like a roadmap to all kinds of really cool research.
And don't forget that second paper we mentioned,
Oh, right. Yeah.
the one that gives a bigger picture of mechanistic interpretability.
Yeah.
It really helps to see the whole landscape.
Yeah, it's a great companion to the survey paper.
So if you're interested in AI, if you want to know how these language models tick, I'd say dive in.
Yeah, jump in
This is a field that's changing so fast.
all the time. Yeah.
And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be the one to make the next big discovery.
It could be you listening right now. And that is what the deep dive is all about.
That's
We take these complex topics and break them down, and hopefully we make you a little bit more curious along the way.
And for those of you joining us on this journey, this is just the beginning.
Oh yeah, we'll be back with more episodes exploring all different parts of LLM research.
And in our next episode, we're going to be taking a closer look at the mathematical representation of LLMs and how these attention mechanisms play such a big role.
So if you are fascinated by the world of AI, be sure to subscribe and join us for the next deep dive.
Until then, keep exploring and keep asking questions.
Keep diving deep.
And remember, the most exciting discoveries often happen when we work together.